Roll.
Action. Usually it helps when you have a script, but we don't have a script.
No.
Okay. What are we entertaining first?
It was the fourth episode, right?
1, 2, 3, 4. Third one didn't come out yet, but by the time it will be fourth episode.
That's great already. In a month.
Yeah. What would you identify yourself as? Not gender wise.
What do you mean?
As in, what do you do?
Oh, what do I do?
Yeah.
How would I describe myself?
Are you a fighter?
So I'm not sure if I can identify myself as a fighter, but anyway, since I'm already doing it this is the 9th year almost, so probably I should, taking into account the amount of time that I spend doing this. Yeah.
And the amount of fights you have now.
Yeah. So even a fighter with my own challenges, but it's probably only fair to say that
Amateur fighter.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Amateur fighter.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. It's your 9th year?
Yeah.
Year number 9 for you.
It's almost, yeah.
Time flies, right?
So I was 42 when I started. But let's say the first year was half in, half out. It was a very, very slow start. And then I picked it up more in 2018. So it's meaning when
you started doing the actual sports classes, not just the choreo classes.
Yeah, more often or more seriously, right?
I see.
And it's probably more that was Sensei in the first place that pushed me with
this is Brian, by the way. On the side.
push me with this crazy idea that I could fight, right? Because initially I started with very, very low expectations.
Like,
okay,
what was the expectation?
I wanna lose a little bit of weight, right? I wanna be in shape again, but in the sense that I used to smoke, right, for almost 20 plus years, right? A smoker.
Even in
not
the
crazy,
of your
but
40s.
I believe I quit just before coming in Canada. So I was 38 years of age, so pretty advanced. So then you already start to have not problem breathing, but you just climb a stair of some stairs and you already feel in your breath, right? So it's starting to be concerning. So initially the objectives were very small, and but then when I so it's either this guy is crazy or he knows
something
that I can go, and it sort of match my own desire of pushing the limits, because I was used with physical challenges since my childhood, right? Being a former gymnast. So
how long did you do gymnastics for?
6 years. 6 years, so less that I'm doing now mixed martial arts.
And
then
what age was that when you started?
I was 8 when I started, which was very late as per the standards of starting gymnastics.
Usually it's what age?
I was usually late in my sports.
Usually
they start like even 4 years of age, 4, 5, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I was very late in the game, and then I stopped at 14.
After I want you to tell that part, what you've been asked.
So yeah, so it was either, not quitting, but letting go of your big dreams, because we all had big dreams, as you guys are having now. We all believe that we will be Olympic champions, right? So that was, so that was something that was taken for granted, right? So that was the end result. We will be Olympic champions. But for that, these were local clubs that I was into, but the system is was a bit different from here, because the local clubs already started with the idea that you will become professional or you will become a champion, right? It was
Sort of like
not
wrestling.
for a mass sort of sports, but they would train you from the very beginning to be elite.
Okay.
So, but then I started in my town, in my where I was born. But then to go for the Olympic team, you would have had to move in a special place in a different town. It's called Deva, and it's pretty famous because you probably don't know Bella Caroli, the was used to train the American team
for gymnastics.
For gymnastics was coming from there, right?
Okay.
From this center. Yeah. So, but that meant that you wouldn't leave home; you'd live there. Like now, there are boarding schools, right? It was like a boarding school. You'd go there and live with your teammates, sleep there, eat there, go to school there, and of course train there. And the training was the most part of
the day.
Yeah. Probably 7 hours per day for sure.
Oh my God.
Morning and afternoons and 6 days per week, right? So only Sunday you would be.
Holy shoot.
Yeah. And everything was controlled because you couldn't live by yourself in the city because you're an underage person anyway, right? You didn't have contact with your family, no phones, or because everything was expensive, no mobile phones existed, right? So you are sort of isolated there, well, with your teammates and the trainers, the coaches, right? But speaking of which, I don't want to make a big deal because it didn't happen to me, but probably that's why a lot of these more aggressive tactics of training the kids were allowed to evolve, so to speak, right? Because it was only the coaches and the little kids, the little girls around. So, right, you'd have to do as told.
So when they approached you to join Olympic training,
Yeah,
you knew that in advance.
I didn't. I knew a little bit. But when you are a kid, you don't process things in the same way, right? So as I told you, for me, it was this doing gymnastics or nothing. That was my whole life. And we had an older colleague of ours who was already there before, and she quit too, but she stayed for a longer period, maybe 2 years. And actually, no, actually, she was in the Olympic team, this Raluca Bruckner. And when she visited back CBU, she told us some stories about how her life is there in this boarding school type of place, and how famished they are all the time, right? And how they would die for a piece of chocolate, or or how and this is in extreme, maybe it's true, maybe not, how there were instances in which they would eat toothpaste because of the being too hungry, or the feeling when you train a lot and you are exhausted and you are famished, right? So that was something that probably they didn't have access to. Or you need carbs, but there were no carbs. Yeah.
It's like Yoel Romero talked about that with his when he went up to when he was coming up in wrestling in Cuba. It was a similar approach too. Huh?
Yeah,
I think he spoke about it in Joe Rogan. Purposely undernourishing I think the way they had it in place was there was the guys that could have a chance to make it to the team, like the B team, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And then there was the A team guys, which were the guys that were actually on the team.
Yeah.
But the guys that were on the B team were there in case a guy from A team got hurt.
Yeah.
Right. So, but every day, these two teams fought each other in the room for a spot. One fights to get the spot, the other fights to keep it. But the A team guys were, how would you say? They were better treated, better nourished, better, you know.
Yeah.
As of B team guys, they were just under. They were like mistreated just enough to feel like they need to earn the spot.
Yeah.
So whenever a team guy was injured, he would
Oh
try to
my
shut his
God,
mouth
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But the B team guy knew, so he'd go after him to take him out.
Yeah.
You know.
They would fight for the status. Yeah.
Exactly.
Too,
So
yeah.
it sounds a lot like that with your.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. Differences were also in the physical toughness, because I remember in the first day when I was there, I didn't stay for long. I stayed for 3 weeks, I believe. But I was doing the conditioning with two girls that were already in the Olympic team. And I don't know, it was like a huge difference, although I was very, very well conditioned from my hours of training. So they were like double or triple, right? And with no complaining, no nothing. They were like, like
so even mentally,
little.
you're saying.
Yes. They're like from a different, different level, different world. So it was impressive.
So it's like they're breeding monsters, literally.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so from there on, what now? Like you put gymnastics aside, what did you move on to with in your life?
So my main reason, and that was probably the number one reason for a lot of girls quitting, is becoming a teenager, right? So I was 14. So you would either put weight on you, because as a girl teenager, it's the normal way of developing your body. So you would either put too much weight for what your body was used to doing gymnastics, or you would want to do something else than train.
Yeah. Anything but train.
Yeah, because so we would have school in the afternoon, right? So then mornings training, 8:30, let's say the morning session would start. Then you would go directly from the gym to the school. That I'm talking about my normal life in my hometown. And then from the school, you'd go back directly to the gym for the afternoon session, right? And then maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you'd come back home. And tomorrow morning, you will start all over, right? So it was it was very intense, and we were very young. That helped because we didn't know anything other than that. But being 14 and being the shortest in the class, all my colleagues in school were already grown up. They were looking so differently than I, right? I started to wonder, okay, but what about me?
Yeah.
I was a kid and they were, young ladies. It was literally like that. It was so short, like one head shorter, right? Underdeveloped physically, except for
like the muscles,
the muscle and the six pack, right?
Yeah.
So that was a sort of the main motive for which I wanted to quit. But then the quitting process was pretty hard, because they wouldn't let you go, right? So I had to be very convinced within me that I want to leave, because otherwise I would have been turned around.
So it can't be doing gymnastics recreationally at all. It's you do it to make it.
Yes.
Or you're not doing it.
Yeah, and it was also because it was communist Romania, and there weren't many things to do in life, right? So you either had a job in a sort of industry that they were developing, or you do sports, or you'd get married and have kids. So not too many options, right? Going abroad was excluded because nobody was allowed to travel. To make money was excluded because nobody was allowed to do money. And there weren't things to buy in the first place. So not that many things to do. So then sort of the entire society was focused on their kids. So that was probably one of the single best parts of the entire period, that families indeed were focused, okay, our kids have to do better than us, right? So then they would put them to sports or to school, or they would work, they would sacrifice for the kids. So anyway, sports was one of the avenues through which a kid could have escaped maybe being from a very poor family or having no other future, right? So, and also the state put some emphasis on this, but they would treat the athletes as a little bit part of their property, the state property, right?
Okay.
So this club was state sponsored, my club where I was doing gymnastics, and they treated us like, oh, this is the hope for Romania to be well represented abroad, right? So we are paying for you because we are keeping this club, we are paying for maintenance, we are paying for the building. It's true, we would go as a team each year for the summer to the seaside, for the winter to ski, right? Paid for. So we were a little bit part of the property of the state. So then quitting, right, when you didn't fulfill your potential, and didn't get back everything to them, right, was possible, but not without effort.
Right.
So
right.
I remember being my hometown was run by the son of the dictator, right? So the dictator of the country is Ceausescu, and he had a son and 2 daughters, I believe. So the son was the one running the city. So then, for this reason, the city was better provided with food than other places. And on the other hand, there were many, let's say, celebrities that were visiting the city because they were visit this guy, Nicu was called. And among these celebrities was this very famous gymnast, Nadia Comaneci, right? She's known all over the world. She's living in the States for many, many years. But at that time, she didn't leave Romania yet. And she was visiting from time to time this guy. We don't know the reason. And when I was quitting, right, she happened to be there. And of course, she would come and visit the gym, the local gym. And she actually came, to my house to convince me, no, you have to stay. And I remember to do until this today that she was saying, look, if you are going to stay in gymnastics, you have the chance to help your family, because she was referring to herself, in becoming somebody, I was able to help my brother. So this is what she was telling me, as to convince me to stay. And this is very much in line with, I told you what happened in that period, where sort of families were trying to survive, right? So everything was about, oh, how can I help my kids or my family in need if something is happening, right? Maybe illness, there were no medicine, there were no nothing, right? Or whatever, right? So that was one of the main driver of everyone. I want to be in such a place to be able to help my family. Yeah. But anyway, my mind was made up, and
you were already set on, no, I'm leaving.
I said no, I'm leaving. Yeah. So.
Yeah, she came to your house.
Yes.
You never told me that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Was it she was sent by the club? They knew you were a bit.
She was there, right? Not for me. She was there, and there weren't too many places to go in the city, right? So she was probably saying, "Oh, I might as well, pay a visit," and
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you had already made up your mind.
I already made up your mind.
Fed up with the workload, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So it was like from one day to another. So today I was all for gymnastics. No, I want to be an Olympic champion. And tomorrow I was, no, I don't have anything to do with it any longer. That's done. Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It was like that.
Yeah. And then you moved on.
And then I moved on.
Okay. And
not to better places though, but I moved on.
Okay. What did it look like after?
So then was just normal life. And so I was 14. In 2 years, when I was 16, the communist regime fell, right? 89.
2 years after.
2 years after, when I was 16. So then sort of everything changed for everybody. Like, you know, in the most essential way one can imagine, right? So nothing would be the same, nothing would work the same, right? But in a way it was good because everybody tried to fill a huge void, you know, very fast and without any rules and without any models to follow. Just, you know, you're by yourself trying to buy things that you never had, or, you know, have experience that you never had, listen to music that you never listened, travel abroad, all in the same time, right? Open businesses. There was no private business in Romania. It was all state owned, right? So nobody had a business. So then everybody wanted to open their own businesses and, you know, be their own masters and make money and
essentially live life. Everybody wanted to start living.
Exactly.
At that point, okay.
Exactly.
So things changed for the better in a way. It was just hard to get used to.
It was, yeah, it was, but it was very wild. It was very wild and no direction for no one, right? You're a young woman. You wanted just to, you know, party and enjoy life. You're, I don't like my father. Oh, he wanted to open the business, and right, but the legislation was not in place. Good legislation was not in place. All the state property was being auctioned away and bought, but was bought by the people that was already also part of the old regime, because they are the only one having enough money or enough information to, so sort of like happen in Russia and in the rest of the Eastern European countries, right? So everything that the state owned was sold for whoever had the money and the information and the connections to buy, right? So the many people made huge riches out of this, right? Because you'd buy very, very cheap or maybe for nothing. And there were, you know, goods there. There were factories, there were land, buildings. Oh yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so everybody tried, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a huge inflation, like 200% inflation per year. Like, you would make money and everything was eaten by inflation. Yeah, for 10 years it was crazy. So the entire 90s, right? Yeah. So, but in a way, you know, being everything started from scratch, you're also allowed to express yourself the way you want it, right? So
that was new as well.
Yeah. So for my generation, it was actually good, because again, we were being pushed by our parents through schools. So school was a priority. So we were fairly well educated, right? And then it was sort of a rule. Okay, you go to university and you become a professional. You have your own profession, right? And it's what's happened to me in the end. I went through the law school and I became a lawyer. I became a lawyer when I was 22 in my hometown, where part of the first generation of young lawyers, right? In between our generation of lawyers and the former guys that went through the law school was a gap of at least 20, no, 30 years, right? So we were we were us, 20 years young lawyers, and the 50 and above years old lawyers. So again, the laws were changing all the time, and we were just feeling this void of we need lawyers, we need to reform the entire justice system, we need judges, we need prosecutors, right? We need everything. So we were there to to fill this void. And it's mostly what we did, especially my colleagues that remain there. Yeah, so
and you stayed a lawyer for?
I stayed a lawyer for 5 years. For 5 years.
So until you were 27.
I was 20. Actually, I was 28. Yeah.
Then you quit lawyer, or
I didn't, because you even now I'm still a lawyer. I didn't pay my annual license, but I could, right? If I go back to Romania and I say, okay, I want to be active again, I just have to pay the just go and pay. So I'll always be a lawyer. But then you were independent. There were this concept of having a big firm of lawyers was not that common, especially not in a small city like mine. And I went in the capital of the city of the country, Bucharest, and I started to work for an American company, right? Because again, as everything was a table to do business, the Americans came with their own funds, right, to start businesses, but also and this was happening in Ukraine too, start businesses, but also to sort of educate a workforce that was completely unskilled in a lot of domains, and especially in the financial domain, right?
Okay.
So in total, in communist Romania, it was just one bank that was available for the people, and not for loans, but for savings. And then another 2 or so banks that were involved in export, that like a normal citizen, you wouldn't have access there. Right? So the concept of mortgage, for example, was completely unknown. Like you'd either have money to buy a house, or
you don't.
You would inherit the house, or you don't, right? You
There's
don't.
No loaning.
No.
Where a house is also, like, I guess not as expensive as they were today.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't that expensive. They became.
What time?
Yeah. So then it was this foundation that came and started these financing programs, including this mortgage program, right? They would have money, and they now would employ local professionals like I to run the program.
Okay.
Right? And so I started, and it was very good because I learned from them not only the language, but also how to do this business, basically, how to work in the financial sector. And it was a lot of pioneering work, being a concept that was not known in Romania. So from proposing the legislation and then following with the implementation, starting a mortgage company, with all the policies and procedures in place, and then starting to run and having client, and actually granting mortgages. So all this process, right, I was part of, and I had a very important role because I was the lead lawyer, and actually the only lawyer at that moment in the program. So it was, for me, as a professional a lawyer, it was very, very fulfilling. Let's say I learned a lot.
And that was all the way until when did you decide to move to? What made your decision to move here, and when was this?
So then I did this for a while, right? So I was 28 until 38. And in between, I met Andrei, my current husband. And so at that time, he was working in Ireland for the same financial company, American financial company, that I was working for in Romania.
What, a branch over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was sent in Romania for just a temporary assignment, and so we met. And at that time, he was already with the application to immigrate in Canada submitted for a while, for a couple of years. So he was waiting for Canada to approve his request to immigrate in Canada, right?
But you guys weren't together yet.
We weren't together at that time. So, but being together, he received this approval from Canada. Right?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Said, yeah, we accept you, Andrei. But then, and once you are accepted, you have maximum 3 years, I believe, 5 or 3, I believe it was 3. You have maximum 3 years to come in Canada. You can't wait
more than
3 years, right?
Interesting. Okay.
So soon enough, right? I had to make the decision. What do I do? Do I go with this guy in Canada, or I stay as a lawyer here?
How long have you guys been together for around that? By that?
Probably 4 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was going on in your life around that period? How old were you?
So I'm right now. I'm 50.
And how old were you when
30,
you were questioning?
30, yeah, 30 something.
Okay.
30, in my 30s, right? And I was actually at the peak of my professional career. Right?
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why you were questioning.
Yeah, I was at the peak of my professional career. I was doing very well. I was having a good future there, right? And it's true that I was living by myself in a small studio, but in the middle of the city, a huge city, Bucharest, right, with a lot of good nightlife. So I was living my life, actually.
You were enjoying yourself.
Yeah, okay. Definitely. It was it was a lot of work, right? But I actually had this corporate lifestyle where you go to work and then you work late hours, and then you go in the pub and stay there, and then you go home and you start fresh the next day.
You do good at your job. Go celebrate the good.
You eat outside and right. So this type of life.
I see. And so now it was, do I leave all this to go with this guy? Yeah. And so what made you say yes?
So I guess it was just the curiosity and the spirit of adventure.
Ah, okay. Nice.
So and the initial plan was, okay, let's go there because we have to. He has to. Let's go there, see what's happening for a while, right? Stay for 5 years, and then
worst case, come back.
Let's move on. We'll move on, right? We'll move on around the world. Basically, one of the aim was to go and settle in the States, right? Because that was and still is probably the number one dream of everyone born in a communist country is we want to go in America, in the States. Yeah. That's the number one dream. And not only a daydream, but I used to dream at night that I am there on American soil.
Oh yeah, it was that. But why America specifically?
Because we always waited for the Americans to come and save us from the communists.
Oh, okay, I see.
That was really.
Hell agreed.
So now you have to put Brian into the scene.
What state would you fantasize being in?
It didn't matter for me. I wasn't aware of any differences. For me, it was all the same, right? It was not even, we wouldn't say the United States of America and the States, we would say America. And everybody knew.
It was just craving like a freedom in reality. And knowing that it was them that could give it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And because until the last moment because they the Americans let us sort of behind the Iron Curtain that was called the Eastern European countries, and the Russia and the states that Russia used to have, the Soviet Russia. So they are behind the so-called Iron Curtain, right? And that was the division of Europe that was made in between Russians and Americans. So in a way, we always consider that the Americans gave us away to the Russians, right?
Right.
But then we still hope that they will come back and sort of, save us at some point, right?
Okay, yeah.
So that was deep in our heads and hearts for a long time. It's probably not the same for new generations, but at least up to my generation, that was something.
I see.
That's why your favorite movie is Top Gun from that era.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you guys ended up
and we
doing the move.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Being adventurous, right? And
straight to Montreal?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, initially we stayed downtown Montreal, in a flat.
Downtown?
Yeah. Yeah.
How long?
Maybe 1 year.
And then into the house now?
After. And then my husband bought the house because we also look for English-speaking area because we both don't speak. So West Island, was, and actually West Island and Point Claire is very beautiful, right?
100%. Yeah.
And yeah, at that time the houses were still affordable. He always had a good job, right? He came with a job, and so yeah, he got a mortgage and he got the house. And so that we still have.
And so what made it that you came here? You signed up here
in JKS?
Yeah.
So again, when I came here, I was 38. I still had my job back in Bucharest, in Romania. I was working remotely for 6 months, but then for another 6 months I would go there. So it's sort of, I was commuting in between the two continents.
Remote work existed back then? Online?
Not that spread, but
okay.
Yeah, I could do my lawyer counseling online.
Okay.
Because I didn't have to go in court. So, but then, I was still staying at home all the time. And probably I didn't feel that I have difficulties integrating myself. But for example, I started to have huge problems with the food because I would go in a restaurant, and first of all, I was shocked because all the portions were huge, right? So
compared to New York,
all the portions were huge, and not only that, you had as a side dish rice. You'd have rice and potatoes, and of course, in my education from home, the food was important. I couldn't, throw away food. So
yeah.
I had this problem for more than a year, I believe, of fighting to finish the food. Yeah. And also a big problem in ordering the food, because it's only here that you have options. If you have mashed potatoes, it's just one option, but here you have many other options.
I see what you mean.
It's with sauce, what kind of sauce, right?
Because in Morocco too, when you go restaurants, the menu is the menu. Here you have you can have the potatoes like this.
You have options, right?
This you can replace it with. I see what
First of all, I didn't know all the words, so I needed assistance to order something in a restaurant, right? And then I had to fight with those huge portions of food. So I was starting to get fat, right? That was the direct consequence. So finally, I believe it was still Andre that took the decision. No, he will start running. And after that,
he
convinced me. Yeah. And he was actually pretty huge. He was like because he was 120 kilograms or something like that. He is tall, but still right now he is 80 something, right? So
my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he convinced me, or me seeing him running, I said, okay, I want to run too. And I started to run in my neighborhood, where it was simply hell in the beginning.
Yeah,
I was able to maybe run for 300 meters and then recovering for the entire day in bed.
Shoot. Okay.
So that was a start. And then going by car on Saint Jean, I saw there are this advertising for kickboxing, for it was not only JKS, but there are a couple on Saint Jean, and sort of the idea entered into my mind. And then I said, okay, I can lift legs, so I could kick a bag.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try this, right? It's not as boring as going and doing cardio or lifting weights or something, right? So then the first gym that appeared in my Google search was JKS, right? JKS. So then the only two problems were, am I too old? And do they speak French or English, right?
Okay.
So I called and Sensei answered, right? And that were the two questions that I put. And Sensei said, of course, come here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I started.
Okay. And so, okay, but then when you started, it was at first you would come in the mornings, cardio classes.
Yeah.
Just moving.
Just moving.
Like you said,
no
right?
expectations, just to get myself in shape.
That was 2017?
2000. Was it 2016? I believe it was the first year.
It was 2 years before me.
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
And so, okay.
So,
And so, my question for you is, when did she? You had a question?
No.
Okay, you keep it in mind. When did she start to become like a prospect to you, like a girl that could potentially end up competing?
I like
Yes. What made you take her under your wing?
Was it after COVID? We started working together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Brian was the one that put me into the team.
Oh yeah, I think what it was I think one of the in-house shows we did like a bit of a raffle contest, right? And one of the prizes was like a free private.
Yeah. I
With
remember
you.
that one.
Yeah.
With
No,
you.
yeah, with me.
With you.
Right?
Yeah.
So she was already working with James.
Coach James,
the boxing coach back then.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, if we do a boxing private, it'll be like a bit a one-off.
Yeah.
Then you'll go back to what you're working on with him.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, I want to do something different, and then we
Yeah.
did jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you already grappling at the time?
No.
That was your intro to.
That was the intro. Yeah. Yeah. But it was sort of at the edge of the entire COVID era, right?
That was right before.
This was no, it was. I believe it was still 2018, but or 2019, something like that,
private?
right? Yeah.
She got introduced to it, and then but she started actually grappling.
Yeah.
Years later.
Yeah.
Okay. So
after the COVID, yeah.
Okay, because what I remember was when I came, you already started doing the sports classes.
Yes.
Yeah.
2018, I already started to come for sparring every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was doing the boxing classes with Coach James.
Yeah.
But I was very boxing focused, right?
Yeah.
And I was already thinking about competing one day, and I was starting pressing Sensei. Oh, right.
That's when I came. I remember you always pressing him about competing.
That's what you always forgot about me, right?
Yeah.
You would say, okay, let's see who wants to compete. Make a list, right? I would put my name on the list, and then he would look around the ring and say, you. I was there, and you might be ready to compete. He was always, jumping over.
Yeah.
I was, hey, sensei.
Yeah, I remember those days, because when you would bring up how, because I wasn't there, when you would bring up how you started with just cardio with the ladies in the morning.
Yes.
And it was at first sensei that pushed you into the idea
That
of
exactly.
Yeah.
So
To me, that was unfathomable, because when I came in, it was you that was like, that was pushing sensei to like when am I gonna compete, sensei?
Yeah.
When am I gonna compete? I remember.
Yeah.
You know.
But he pushed me into the sparring and into the main sports classes, right? So from being cardio housewife in the morning into being do boxing sports classes, and maybe not necessarily he wasn't thinking me competing, but just okay, he was saying, he said at some point, okay, if you want to punch hard, then you might as well go for Wednesday sparring. So
Oh, he said that.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I remember, and then I would see you in the classes, and then when I started sparring, I saw how you were around there too.
Yeah.
And it was like, my gosh, because Andra looks younger than she is, but to me it was like, oh yeah, I could see it's not too late, to me it was like, oh, mid-30s, yeah, that's like a few amateur fights, 100%.
Yeah.
You were like, best your 30s, I think, already, but it didn't look like it.
Yeah.
She was jacked, even back then. And
Yeah.
so then it became
sensei's warm-ups.
It was sensei's warm-ups back then.
Yeah. That was what put me in the shape.
People
amazing.
were hating on the teachers' workouts today.
Yeah.
Where they're unaware of sensei's workout. Oof.
Yeah.
And so
I guess your body remembered being that strong
at some point. Yeah. At some point.
Up,
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. But I was doing the warm-up every day. Like going to the church, I was doing my warm-up. Yeah.
And then I remember during COVID, when that's when we actually started the team trainings.
Yeah.
Right.
But I wasn't yet part, right?
No, you came a bit later.
I came after.
Because we had closed during COVID. Like there was 2 waves of COVID. There was one that was like during
the entire 2020 was closed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
it was March until summer,
and then there was October until
June. So that was the initial one. Then gyms were allowed to open a bit in the summer.
You joined there. When they opened, you joined. In the summer of 2020.
So my starting point is 2021. Maybe I was a little bit in 2020, right?
At the end of 2020,
yeah, or maybe like so, right?
That's it.
But I remember that for the entire year, or the most part of the year, I was training in my basement, right? And I was sort of posting videos on Instagram.
I remember seeing those,
that Brian was watching. Brian, was.
Of course, sees everything. Of course.
Brian was seeing me.
It's the gym's camera.
Yeah. He knows everything.
Yeah. And that, because I remember you seeing the videos. Then when we reopened in the summer, and then we reclosed, Sensei made the decision. No, we're gonna keep the team training.
Yeah.
Because we were hopeful that
the
lockdown was only 1 month.
Right.
But it ended up being a year.
That one was 8 months.
8 months of no gym. But we would show up, and that's when you started showing up. And by that time, I remember you being still more boxing heavy. Sometimes kickboxing.
Yeah, no, boxing, clearly,
Yeah, and then, but by that time you had decided, okay, slow but sure kickboxing.
Yeah, because the boxing team anyway dissolved. Was nobody left. Mandy left.
All the boxing
Kathleen
team we
left.
had back then left. Yeah.
The boys left.
Yeah, I remember before COVID, it was there was a lot of shows lined up.
Yeah.
And it was easy to kind of prepare. There was always an event in the horizon.
Yeah.
But then after COVID, it got very weird.
Yeah, exactly.
There were not
no events.
Competitions for a bit then. So.
Yeah, no.
Especially for boxing. It was boxing that they were like banning a bit.
Because boxing had to be official.
Yeah.
Right.
But Maz was not official when he hooked us. Shut up, Maz. But then that's when, because we knew if we when we become free from the lockdowns of COVID,
yeah,
it's gonna have to be the illegal shows, the MFLs, the Fight Quest. Those were easy entries.
right.
So we kept you
2021.
one.
That's when
2021.
you fought MFL for the first
MFL
time,
for the first time. Correct. And
Yeah,
by that time, during that lockdown, I remember we went from you only boxing in the beginning to, okay, well, I'm with the guys. Let's just start kickboxing.
yeah,
And then it became right after kickboxing, we would put the little gloves.
yeah.
And then that's when at first I think
You were
usually
throwing me
yo, I would
throughout the ring.
I would drop Andra to body shots like she was a dude. I had no mercy on her, poor
But
girl.
with takedowns, there was
Everything,
had to
everything.
scramble
Everything.
out.
She went through it. And so slow but sure became you sensei teasing you into it. No, it's one takedown.
Yeah, and then it's true. Sensei said at some point, "Hey, go and start the jiu-jitsu classes."
Yeah.
And I said, "No."
Exact. And next thing you know, you're like one of our top grapplers.
Yeah, the 10th planet was still here. Yeah, because I started with Scott
Nagy. Scott
yeah.
Nagy, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
noon time.
I was when it was noon.
Yeah.
Noon classes.
Noon classes. Yeah, just for two months or so. And after that, I started private classes with Brian in jiu-jitsu.
So it was around that time.
Yeah.
And
or was this 2022 already?
End of 2021, 2022.
2022, I started private classes with Brian in jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
And then that year is where you had your first fight.
Yeah, 2022. Yes, my
Against,
first fight
again
MFL.
At MFL.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was kickboxing.
Yeah, it was kickboxing.
And
Mael from Thailand.
Thailand.
Yeah.
Thailand.
Mael from Thailand.
And so you had lost that first one,
yeah,
but then you went on like a tear. You won bronze gloves.
Yeah.
You won a kickboxing fight.
Yeah.
You were winning grappling tournaments.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
What was the first experience grappling tournament?
It was in 2023.
This is the best story of all time.
Yeah, you got gold, I think, your first tournament.
Oh yeah, with the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
Best story of all time.
When you were coaching.
It was the best story of all time.
Yeah.
This is my favorite story.
Expectations going into that first one.
Jiu-jitsu match.
Yeah. What expectation, bro?
So I guess I was already, I entered into this new stage of being competitive. Now that I knew that I can do it.
But that day was a mess.
And I was already very, very serious with my training, with my being competitive, and and show you guys that I can do it.
You're training full time, I think.
Yeah, I was training by that time. Yes, twice per day.
Minimum 4 hours a day.
Yeah. So I wanted to keep the pace with you guys, right? So, okay. But so my first the expectations in the jiu-jitsu match was just to start. No expectations, but it's very nice when you do something from the very beginning. We were talking about being the first in a field. You have an inner freedom that you lose afterwards, right? So I had no idea about the stand-up game, right? So I didn't know the wrestling. I had zero idea, zero concepts. And the only thing that was in my head was Scott's advice, our Scott
Rodriguez.
They said, if anything, it just be annoying, just be annoying. So I was keeping my boxing stance or fighting stance and trying to be annoying in my wrestling, but that was without any expectations. And then because I won that one, and I wasn't even aware why did I win, right? It was like a blur.
Yeah.
But all I know it was that I was completely exhausted after my first match, and I still had one to go. And it was a very, very clear and absolute no. It's impossible. It's not it's not in the in my
there's no
capacity.
way to fight. Yeah.
There is no way. I mean, whoever is telling me otherwise, he doesn't know what he's talking about, right? And I remember you sort of not taking me seriously, insisting that, Ria, this is the end for me. I'm still, I'm an old person. I cannot continue. And no, just breathe. And I was breathing, but for no avail. And I was so determined to make you, let me go, that I took my husband away so you can't hear us, and trying to convince him that I have to go because I feel so exhausted, and let's get out of here.
I didn't know that.
Yes, you have to believe me. I cannot continue, right?
You have to
but then, but then he didn't buy it, right? So yeah. we had to come back to you.
Yeah. They had to fight.
Yeah.
I still remember you freaking out. I always wondered what state of, because one thing, the quality you had better than all of us, that's a quality we had to build, but you had it like almost innately, is like your stoicism in fights. Because just how because you fought, won, still on the mat, came back, looked stoic, and the moment you exited the mat, just and you're like on the ground.
Yeah.
On the brink of death.
Yes.
And like crying, like like laughing.
So now
at
you
you
recognize.
Yeah. And then, but then you left because you told me, "Oh, I have to go to the bathroom."
Yeah.
Andre, come. So I guess that's when you tried to convince him.
Yes.
And then you came back and you were still freaking out. But then when they called your name to compete, instant. It was like,
yeah.
And then you just went back.
Yeah. I guess it's true. This type of going through things. It's either because it was in me or because of the gymnastics. It helped me through the process, right? It's something that I have to do, like it or not, easy or not. I just have to go through, and that was available for the trainings, for competing, for everything, right? We don't know where I will end up, but what we know right now is that I have to do this and also because look, all these people around me, right, put something into me. I mean, I can't just abandon or cancel or right. So it's already people involved, right, for me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
And then you won that second fight. Yeah. Which made you win the tournament.
Yeah.
I think you went into overtime.
Yeah.
Then you hit the sweep from De La Riva.
Yeah.
Because your wrestling back then was De La Riva sweep. You'd grab, sit down, De La Riva people.
Yeah.
That was your thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It was, I think it was first to score overtime. That was the rule.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I remember the referee coming and stopping me, and I said, I was amazed that, but also relieved that it's over.
Yeah, I get to go home. And then you exiting the mat, us telling you won, and it not registering for like minutes.
Yeah, because I didn't actually know what.
Yeah.
Why did he stop us? And
And do you feel like, because it was this, then you ended up like winning a few in a row, even in like striking. Did that help do you find like that was a key thing for your confidence moving forward?
I think at some point, I at some point I started to want more, right? So
out of competing in
yeah, because initially I said, okay, let me compete once and check that box, and then that's it. I will say I competed once, right? But then expanding into jiu-jitsu too, I said, let me compete as much as I can, and don't stay in the master division, where right. Let's see now, can I face younger girls too, right? So then I started to challenge myself more, and wanting more for myself.
I never noticed she didn't do masters.
Yeah.
Well, I think you would always kind of sign up for it, but then realize there wasn't anybody, so you'd go to the.
But also,
regular,
intentionally that I wanted to let's
challenge
see,
yourself a bit.
let's see, can I really do it or
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So
Okay.
I wanted to prove myself, right? That's I still want, but not to that extent. But I did have that period when I wanted to prove myself in front of myself and in front of you guys that I can do this. Right?
So now, because like I find because you're not even doing fighting with like crazy like ambitions, right?
Yeah.
But you're doing it very recreationally, but your approaches are always like more than professional.
Yeah.
You're when you have a fight scheduled, then
you
you
train
go,
like a
Yeah.
actual
like a pro
fighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Twice a day. Each training is like 2 hours and a half.
Yeah.
And then you go back home.
Yeah.
Barely have energy to eat, sleep, come back.
Yeah. That's true.
So I guess my question is, from up until now, what is your what would you say is the things that you what are the aspects in life that you grew in, and what did you take away from competing?
So that's an entire different chapter. So first of all, it helps you with the team, being part of the team, right? So because one is to be accepted in a team and another is to be part of the team, right? So you cannot be part of the team unless you are 100% there and you act as if your life depends on it, right? Or your career or whatever, right? So you have to be genuine, you have to be true, right? So that is one. I wanted that because it's fun, right? And it's fulfilling, and it's probably because also my previous experience as a gymnast, it was always good to be with my teammates. So that in my brain is something pleasurable, right? You do stuff together. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that was one. Secondly, I also wanted to give back, all the effort that I've seen from Sensei, Brian, you, the rest of the team, that surrounded me, with training with me, advice, pushing me, taking care of me. When I was competing, like treated like a queen. It was already, oh my God, I have to be serious for these guys too, right? If they treat me as a serious person, I have to give back, frankly, right? And then it's also the time limit that I know. Oh,
No, I can't
soon,
compete for much longer.
soon, yeah. Either I want it or not, soon it will be over, right? So I might as well push now when I have the chance. And so all this together. But now talking about how competing is changing you, it certainly does. And maybe not necessarily changing, but while you go through life and you start accumulating failures or disappointments, or you sort of move away from your true self because things are happening not according to what you wish for or whatever, right? So you move away from your true self a lot in life. So, but then competing, because not from the very beginning, but repeatedly doing it, it digs into you. It's forcing you to dig into yourself. I don't know through what process or through what mechanism, but this is what's happening. It forces you to face yourself and to start digging into you, right? And in this way, it's like peeling, layers, like peeling an onion, layers, right? And going back to your true self, what you used to be, right? Maybe when you were a kid, or maybe when you were a young person full of hopes, right? So so that certainly training for the fight and fighting did for me.
Yeah. You feel like it's things that You could have probably found it in something else in life, but do you feel like not many other things could have
No, not money. No.
had that effect on you?
Yes, because it's so intense. It's so absolute, right?
Yeah.
It's so with no margin of error, because you cannot hide. It's you are facing another human being like yourself, right? Face to face, body to body, right? So you cannot pretend, you cannot hide. You have to face. You have to face the music. So not many sports are doing that for people,
Zero.
right?
Yeah, I agree. As I agree, it could get to some extent, not completely, but with other sports, it could get that stressful. I hear judo competitors go through high levels of stress, but that's because like their sport, it has a small margin for error before they lose. But we play with our health, right?
As in striking.
Striking, yeah, MMA, you know.
Yeah.
So you're preparing the best you can. You're getting yourself into the best shape possible.
Yeah.
To potentially maybe like lose that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So and then, you know, because you're also trying to do it to the other person.
Yeah.
It's always I find when you have that too. When I find when I go into prepping for a fight, I'm like a different person a bit because I go into an extreme of competitiveness.
Yeah.
But then when from fight week to after the fight,
Yeah.
that moment after the fight, you appreciate life a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you restrain yourself from doing a lot of things in prep.
Yeah.
But then when you go back to regular life and just taste like regular life, regular food, talking to people normally, and you know.
Yeah, definitely.
It helps you understand a lot of the things like we take for granted on a day to day.
Yeah.
But not just food and some of the things we use for pleasure. Just
having spare time a little bit, right?
Yeah, or being in my case is being because I force myself to think a certain way when I'm preparing for a fight.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I don't allow anything else.
Yeah.
But when the fight is over, and like you make a lot of room for mistakes.
Yeah.
Just that in itself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to learn
Also in the
failure.
training, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then my question is, how would you relate to that? Like, you know, you fight when you're preparing for a fight. I mean, you take away rooms for mistake. You give for yourself. You make mistakes, but you get mad at yourself.
Yeah.
You finish a fight. You go back to training, allowing yourself to make mistakes, and your learning rate.
Yeah.
Just from understanding how much you need to let yourself fail to.
Yeah,
to learn.
that's very interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about it, but I did have this feeling of now freedom after a fight, freedom to explore.
Yeah.
You know, and not being pressured to
that
perfect
one
something,
thing. Yeah, exactly.
but to enjoy actually, you know, the new stuff that
Because in a way in which it helped me was because then in life it helped me not care so much about how I look in front of people or how, oh, why are you doing this? No one does that. It's a failure if you dress like this. You look like a failure, or if you speak like this, or if you
well, I guess it's the same. You know, you are becoming more true to yourself.
There you go.
And then less affected by other people, right? Mm-hmm. Unless it's people that are very close to you, or you know,
being less affected by failure, but being able to build from failure.
Understand. It's again, you understand yourself better, and you don't let yourself destroyed by events, right?
Exactly.
You know that you still have yourself, sort of like, right? Mm-hmm. That's also important, because I didn't know for a while, right? Why do I care about my body, right? I'm not a beauty, but I do care about my body, and I believe it's also because it's part of my integrity as a person, right? As long as I can keep the shape of my body as it used to be when I was young, right? It's part of who I am, my core, right? Mm-hmm. And it can help you, right? Not to get destroyed in the process of life.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
You keep yourself together.
100%. Right? It goes hand in hand with how you take care of your bodies, how you take care of your mind a bit too.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
One thing with you that I learned from you is we treated her last fight maybe like it might be her last. Right?
Yeah.
And it was after you fought, I fought my last amateur. It was my last amateur, I told myself.
Yeah.
And it was okay, it's my last one. Enjoy everything.
Yeah.
Win, lose, doesn't matter. Prep goes well or not, doesn't matter. You have to enjoy. I made a promise to myself to enjoy everything.
Yeah.
And I promised to myself to make the camp as much about quality as possible.
Yeah.
And see how it would affect the fight. And me telling, but then ironically ended up being like, oh wait, it is my last one. And a lot of the advices I would give you from your fight about like, oh, don't like this much pressure you put on yourself. It's your last one. You want your last one to be, you look back at it and you didn't enjoy. You lost, whatever. Enjoy. You might never get tapped again.
Yeah.
Might get knocked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no more training. But
yeah.
It was this. It was from now on treating each fight like it might be my last.
Yeah.
But that's what would help me put more focus on like quality. Similar to like when you color. A color and then you pay attention to how you color, you don't pass the lines, and it becomes stimulating.
Yeah.
You know, camp started to feel like that a bit from me telling myself, this might be your last one.
Yeah.
So enjoy it a bit. So now when I would pay attention to detail better, get things done better, take more care of them, as opposed to if I put the emphasis on just winning, then it becomes like I just need to get things done.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking too much about just
jump to
the
the
end
result.
of the fight.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
I think
definitely.
During that camp, we're talking about a quote that Flavio Canto, that's a jiu-jitsu guy. He said when he was young and doing judo, they asked him, "Why do you want to win?" And they were asking his teammates, and he gave an answer different than his teammates. He said, "Because if I win, that means I get to live this life a little bit longer."
Yeah. So just being able to, the life we live. If we become world champion, let's say.
Yeah.
And we get to keep training without people telling us, "Oh, why are you doing this? Is stupid. What's your plan B?" You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's very true. But you know what? So then again, Brian, right, sort of showed me what can be after I stop competing, right? And I'm actually making peace with it, right? Because I can continue to train, but for the sake of martial arts, not necessarily now for the sake of competing and winning or losing, right? But just to perfect the skills as much as you can, and for as long as you can. So that was a very appealing idea for me, and it provided me for a path forward, right? So now I'm at peace that no matter what's happening with my ability to compete, I still have to enjoy, because I can do that, right? But it's another, it's another change in the mindset. It's another change in the mentality, right? So because it was first putting into a mindset of competing, and now I have to put myself into my mindset of what's after, what can I do after, and not lose everything, because it's very it's already part of me, right?
Yeah. So can we plug it? Is the jiu-jitsu for the women that she's teaching, is it still free for a little bit before they pay a fee to join? If they're not a member, for them to try.
No, if they're a member, they can
try. If they're a member,
before they.
So if you're a member at JKS, Andra teaches women's classes that you can try for free for a few sessions. Actually, I think before you have to pay the fee.
Yeah, and actually
before you commit to it.
Before you commit to it, exactly, right?
Yeah, and actually the women's class started to be very consistent and solid. So
and they're getting very good every time. I peek.
Absolutely right. Yeah,
they're getting very good. So, that aspect, teaching, how much do you find it helped your approach to training?
A lot.
Yeah. Did it help you see a different perspective?
Yeah. Well, I just saw on Instagram somebody saying that teaching is like learning for the second time, right? So it's like doing twice the same thing. So it is like that.
Yeah. Do you find pleasure in seeing growth from your students? Because a lot of times when someone does better, skill wise, a lot of times it's not the skills, unless it's a competitor.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people, they don't compete, they just want to train. It's not the skills that they acquired, it's the person they had to become to acquire that skill. I think that's where I get the most fulfillment. You know what I mean? Because then it's you know, if they leave the gym,
Yeah.
they leave with something greater than just the move.
Yeah.
Is the person they had to become
Yeah.
to apply the concept or the move or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. Did you ever feel that with some students?
So it's again under Brian's sort of umbrella that he's pushing me into that direction, right? I was more more of a blunt sort of an approach. So I always have a good idea or on where I want to be with the team, right? What do I want to teach? I know in advance for right, and I want to make sure that I'm teaching that and I'm putting that into their bodies, and maybe sometimes it's not the case, so maybe sometimes you have to be more playful or not to insist that much on, you know, certain techniques, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not there yet to work with the mindset. I'm more of working.
You're still on the
with
moves.
I'm still on the working the bodies.
Fair,
working
fair.
the moves.
100%, 100%, 100%. So, my last question: what's what's the plan for this year? Is this the last year? What's the plan? How are we going forward?
Remember when you had a fight in the States?
Yeah.
And one of the matches was a woman. She was 52.
Yeah. She was jacked.
Yeah.
Muscular. She was good.
And she was doing MMA and she won the fight, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, that said for me, like, oh, I could be 52 and do that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be 51 in March. So at least for this year, I want to compete once, twice if I can, right? We'll see how it goes. I want to compete in jiu-jitsu as much as I can, right? And we'll see after that. It also depends on my professional career that is now I'm switching into this financial field, and I'm having my last exam in February. So if I'm passing the exam, it will probably take another 6 months or so to find a job. Once I'm finding a job in the field, if everything goes as planned, right, I'll probably have less time to train, so competing will
We'll have to cut.
be out of the question. But until then, right, at least for this year, I want to still compete and jiu-jitsu and MMA.
Boom. Boom. And that sounds to me like a podcast. Boom. How long was this?
It's pretty long.
Nampa. An hour 30.
Okay, what about top memorable moments?
An hour 20.
In I guess the team competing and whatnot.
In what?
Most memorable moment in the team competing. Like all the people in the team.
Yeah.
What was your most memorable moment in all the guys competing? Oh, let's have each one.
For example, like
let's have each one name one. You first.
Yeah, when Shiloh Rodriguez, right, was fighting Vince Nikiforov, and then and then I don't know if it was 1-1 going into third or he was probably down 2 and he had to finish him. And
I had it like that.
That was probably more accurate. And then he slips, throwing a spinning heel kick 2 times. He slips 2 times, right?
I think you guys had said just before the round, like, okay, no back kicks.
No more kicks. Yeah. There's 2 in a row. Slips 2 times. The second time, the guy gets on top of him, and then our hearts sink. We're like, well, the time is gonna take to work his way back to the feet. Probably not. You know.
Yeah.
I think he lost.
Yeah.
And then he sneaks the armbar from side control.
Yeah.
And finishes the fight.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember.
Because he would get his ass like whooped in the gym by his brother.
By Scott.
Out of nowhere, just get him with the armbar. That same setup.
That would happen every week. I thought you just made it happen again in the fight. I remember I was fighting, like, I was the fight right after, and just getting over. I needed him to win because he was preparing for a fight without an opponent.
Yeah.
So, like, that camp was long too.
Yeah.
We fought in January. we started prepping in like October.
Yeah.
I remember. It was so long. Oh my gosh. So he was coming every day and we started training at like 6 a.m. He'd finish at like 12, 1 o'clock to go to school, come back and oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So he had to win. So I remember him getting the finish and I was fighting next. I was so excited. I started crying, so I had to manage crying. Yeah. Stop crying, stoic face, go in, win, finish. And I remember thinking, why am I so tired? I don't understand. It was just a 3-round fight. It was from like the emotions before, you know. What was yours?
So I remember when it was a string of losses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And on top of that, I don't know, we had like 5 losses in the same event. And on top of that, when Shiloh was driving the car back home, the car broke in the middle of the night, in the middle of the nowhere. So that was sort of.
You fought Nikki the first time.
Yeah, because that was gonna be mine actually. I will never forget that night in my life. Yeah. No matter how much I succeed. We fought. It was October 7th, 2023. Fuck. It was Samir, Shiloh, Amer, and myself. And I was fighting for the title at MFL back then. You know why this one will always stay in my heart? Because it was, I think to this day, like there was a lot happening in my personal life too.
Yeah.
A lot of bad things going on.
Yeah.
But prep, I remember channeling like all the depression, just the sadness and anger I had in my heart properly to have like the best camp ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was the most progress I've ever made in a training camp. To just lose in like 20 seconds, you know what I mean? Oh my gosh. And all the guys too made like a lot of progress.
Oh yeah,
everybody made like we were progressing way too fast.
Yeah.
You know, it felt we were so confident.
Yeah, because JK started to be noticed in MFL and
I remember being very confident going into the night, just from remembering where all 4 of you started when you guys accepted the fights, and then like the week of the fight, I was like just comparing the start and the finish point. I was like, oh, they
different level.
Yeah, it was like they jumped 2 or 3 grades.
Yeah. For us to all lose, for us to all get finished. For us to all get finished. I will never forget that.
But indeed, if you think about when we started 2000, if you start as a starting point 2021, right? Mm-hmm. It's like it's a huge progress and difference for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Just complete different humans.
Yeah.
Overall.
And it's probably a lot to do with Brian.
Yeah, without him, it would have been a sinking ship. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. No, I think, me too. It was. Is it? Yeah, I think me too. It was that one because I remember that night making a promise to myself to not forget all the progress I made, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
So that was the first time in my life where I had to do don't focus too much on the outcome.
Yeah.
Input as well. It was hard. It was a rough night.
Now, when I said what was your memorable moments, I was like, think about happy ones.
Happy moments.
No. Well, it's thanks to that one that we were able to build.
Yeah, you know what? When you have in the pictures, it shows. You know, when you win a fight, and the first picture that you are taking with the coaches, actually you can see on everyone's face, you know, the pure joy. I love those pictures. Mm-hmm. I have some too. Yeah.
Nah, me, it was that night. It had to be that night, 100%. Because if it wasn't for that night, nothing that good that happened after would have came. So to me, it had to be that night. Or that Shiloh moment.
Yeah.
100% that Shiloh moment. So anyways, any other question, you?
No questions. Thank you very much. That was quite a talk. Now, maybe nothing was recorded. Take 2.
Bro.